to talk in quite broad terms of things that might affect that team, because I think we always talk about the new normal, but is it now the new normal, or is it just normal because we're all getting so used to it? So I want to just take a little look back to the last recession to say why we've had to change and what impacted them, which will affect recruitment now. So what did we learn from 2008? Well, financial performance was the number one priority then, and it still is now, obviously. But in 2008, the staff budgets were slashed and the reduction in talent was absolutely immense. And support staff, let's make no bones about it, were treated brutally, and they took on the brunt of those staff cost cuts. That loss of talent had a negative effect for quite a long time after the crisis passed, and there really was a war for talent. But firms that kept that hard to replace human capital weathered the crisis better, and they prospered as the economy recovered. And roles were upskilled by necessity, especially financial roles. I lost track of the number of finance directors we placed between 2008 and 2009, and now you cannot do without a decent finance director, that's for sure. Now, in 2020, we didn't knee-jerk and dismiss staff because we had the furlough scheme obviously in place to help that. But suddenly non-performance became reviewed across the board, not just support staff, but with fee earners and partners. And that's the first time I'd seen that happen. And staff concerns moved to the very top of the agenda. And that mental and physical well-being and a sense of community became absolutely paramount. Now, we embraced uncertainty in a different way because we absolutely had to. And COVID shone a light on things we didn't even consider or think possible in 2008. We know, as Mark said, digital transformation has become turbocharged, and we know those IT costs became wise investments. And working from home, whilst still being productive and working remotely, became absolutely normal. And I was asked recently by a candidate, does it matter that this role is based in London? Does it matter where I live? And that's a fair point, because it used to be absolutely standard for directors to have a flat in London during the week and travel quite long distances home at weekends. But does that really matter now? Because we can all work remotely. And concerns for staff wellbeing have become the hallmark for best-in-class employers, that's for sure. It really does ensure that firms not only attract staff, but they retain staff. And it is very powerful when I'm recruiting to let people know how staff were treated during the lockdown and how they're being treated now when they were still working remotely. But things that we considered totally impossible just aren't. We interview remotely, we do induction remotely, we train remotely, and data security whilst working remotely is in hand. Now, for me, professional services are different to other sectors in two major ways. And that's the nature of the work, because it's bespoke and it's tailored to clients regardless of the service model or the data. And the cultivation of long-term client relationships is absolutely key. But these two things need skilled delivery capabilities. So actually, your people are your firm. And in recent MPF surveys, Richard, I have been paying attention, please note, and it came up again today. 3 things carried the most weight with the board. And that's finance and cash flow, and it was right at the top again this week. Marketing and new business generation, which we saw today has moved up again, and client service. So whilst there is consolidation in operational activities, it is much easier to make a business case in those business critical areas for new roles. And whilst there is consolidation, we can move forward in a different way. In 2008, there was very little strategy regarding talent. But in 2020, that business talent strategy is firmly tied now to the firm's operating model. And businesses are recalibrating their core strategy with today's realities in mind. And we've heard a lot today on that poll about client-driven focus. And I sat on a banking conference not very long ago, and I listened to a panel of general counsels expressing how frustrated they were with the lack of engagement and the assumption that law firms had got it right. So there is a time now for a more engaging, a more informative and transparent connection to clients. And I think a higher quality delivery approach will increase the share of those that do engage in this way. Now, whilst we're talking about client-centric engagement and innovation, I think that should be the absolute gold standard for recruitment, and it's sadly not often there. I act as an advisor to firms, as do many other good recruiters. I expect to sit with the board and engage with areas of the business where the role has impact. I need to gain an understanding of those firms' needs and their vision moving forward so I can explain that to candidates. And as Richard alluded to, I've had over 30 years in recruitment. And sadly, I have heard recruiters called all manner of things. But I think apropos of the time of year, yeah, we are vampires in the way that you have to invite us in to get us in there. And when you do invite us in, we will suck you dry, but for information. Because if you give us that information, it will make the procedure better for everyone. So please bear that in mind when you're recruiting roles that have a real impact on the firm. Because otherwise, we just simply can't help you. There is a time for gatekeepers and there is a time to really engage with your recruitment people. Now, roles are emerging, no doubt, that we haven't yet fully imagined, but we are starting to, thank goodness. Those directors of wellbeing, the director of engagement, and more non-exec directors coming into the sector that we haven't seen before. And we've gone from those very brutal cuts of 2008 to really the art of the possible. And I think we're getting quite close to the art of the amazing as new innovation comes in. I think firms will be more agile, they will be lean, they'll be more digitally infused, and they'll be experience-centric, and they might even North Shore. Time will tell.